They met us at Blue Coyote in Palm Springs with a couple other industry professionals, and we laughed, and we cried, and we hugged, and we had so much fun together. So for me, the Blue Coyote just reminds me of all the fun times that we've had together, and especially that one. So I really wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to ask John some questions about his life and the things that he's done, but I can't not give you a quick introduction as to who he is before we get into that. So we'll go to the next slide, maybe. Uh-oh. There we go. So actually, John laughed hysterical because I took this from his website. It's one of his first press clippings, and believe me, there are pages and pages and pages of press clippings. So John has had a 40-year remarkable career in interior design. Look how young he is in that picture. And he has done some incredible projects, including some celebrities. So you might not know that he did Steve and Marjorie Harvey's penthouse or condo here in Chicago when Steve was doing his talk show. He worked for 8 years with John Cusack and did many projects with him. He worked with Jerry and Thelma Krause, if anybody is old enough to know the Bulls from Jerry Krause's era. We all know who that is. And he even worked with Jane Seymour. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's many more. I couldn't include them all. He's done projects in New York City, Naples, Florida. Just flew to Naples this week for a project. Tupelo, the birthplace of Elvis. San Francisco, Los Angeles, Palm Springs, Rancho Mirage, Rancho Santa Fe, and at home, like Delaware, Geneva, Holland, Michigan, and in every suburb on the North Shore. I said, well, I bet you didn't do one here. And yes, I did. So we talked all about that. But that's not all. Farther away projects in Toronto, Vancouver, Acapulco, and Lagos, Nigeria, Africa. So what you might not know about John is John has written a book, which is partially about his life. Oh, the book is downstairs. I was going to hold it up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So
there it is, bigger than life.
It's bigger than life. It's fabulous. I've read it myself, of course. But this book is really about his life in the design world. But it's really a story that blends his wit, sharing a lifetime of design, beauty, awe-inspiring world travel. He talks about several of his different location projects, relationships, love, and the essence of the human spirit. So many of his famous clients did not know that he was battling for his life and didn't know that he was blind when he was making the world beautiful. So this book, when I read it, and after knowing you and how charismatic you are, I said, please, will you allow me to do an interview with you at the luxury conference so I can share this with everyone. So at the end today, before we go to lunch, John has a table up there, and Stephen and John will be at that table selling the book. The percentage goes to type 1 diabetes. So we get a little teaser, so about 15 minutes of an interview with John, so you can get to know that personality that I was talking about and the person I love so much. So I'm going to ask John a couple questions, and I think he's prepared to answer. So John, there's so many things I could ask you, but why don't we start with why write a book?
Over the years, during the tenure of my career, there were instances when people said you should write a book. It wasn't really my idea. My first instance was when I was in my early 20s. I was legally blind, I couldn't see, and yet I was building a business. I had an office, I had rent and people to pay. I had a building I had just purchased at 18.4% interest that needed to be totally gutted and undone and redone. And so someone said the title of your book should be Too Young for Memoirs.
I'm gonna hold it.
Okay.
This way I know everyone's gonna hear you loud and clear.
Later, many years later, I was really busy in my career, so there was no time to write a book. But many years later, I had one of my legs chopped off, and so we thought that the title of the book could be How to Lose 12 Pounds in an Hour and a Half. The problem with that was that it wasn't a diet book, and so if people saw that title on a bookstore somewhere, they'd be like, they wouldn't even pick it up because they were thin and they didn't need the advice. So that title didn't work, and finally, we came up with the candy in my pocket, which really refers to my life as a diabetic, type 1 diabetic, and having in my lifetime to have candy in my pocket or not. And when I didn't, I passed out in the best of places, the tomb of Napoleon in Paris, or in the Vatican, or
Beverly Hills.
or oh my God, Beverly Hills. Oh my God, yeah, driving down Sunset Boulevard. I passed out in the car that I was driving as that road was waving. So anyways, the title of the book, yes, is The Candy in My Pocket. It talks a lot about the design industry. Holly wrote a review for the book, which I was really grateful for. But I had passed out in her showroom once too, so they had to call me an ambulance and take me away. But I wanted people to know that even in the worst of times, there was still something out there worth going ahead for and living for, and doing what you wanted. And I certainly did everything that I wanted, and that's really what this book is about. You don't have to have type 1 diabetes. You could have cancer. You could have a bunch of other debilitating diseases, but it's really about survival. And so thank you for asking that question.
That's a good starter question, but I want you to know, as much as that was so emotional, and reading the book, you're going to feel that way, but you're also going to laugh. You're going to say, I can't believe he did that project. So there's a bunch of stories about different kinds of projects. So just pick one or two that you really were your favorite stories.
So
Melinda.
Melinda was talking about Lincoln Park, and I had a project there years ago. A client of mine bought a house. It had just been remodeled. And he wanted a new kitchen because he was a restaurateur, and he wanted a breakfast room. And there was no room in the house for a breakfast room, so that required an addition. Well, 7 years later, my clients finally moved into the house. We added 2 more floors. We added an elevator. We heated all the sidewalks. We heated all the floors on the interior. 3 staircases on the inside, and another 3 staircases on the outside. So that takes you from the 4th floor to the 5th floor. The 5th floor was really on top of the elevator shaft, so it would be a real penthouse. This is one of the staircases on the interior. It took us 18 months to have this made and installed. It's all plastered on the underneath side. All the balusters were hand carved. The handrail is mahogany. So, and in the backyard, on the roof of the garage, we put a reflecting pond and planted a garden up there which concealed the air conditioning condensers, so that when they were standing on their balconies looking towards their garden, they didn't see for condensers. And so this spits 300 gallons of water per minute into the lily pond down below on the ground level. The speed could be manipulated so that it started at 100 gallons, which was a trickle, and it was a very soft sound. And as you increase that, the noise, I hate to call it noise because it was really lovely, but became stronger. So it was an awesome project. And I remember once my client called me, I was on a vacation, and he's like, when am I going to get to move into my house? He was forgetting that he was the one that kept wanting to add floors and add the elevator, add all these things, which required changes to the structural drawings and another permit. We had 6 permits pulled for this house. But anyways, I said to him, oh my God, the newspaper guy.
Dennis Rodkin.
No, in California.
Hearst.
Hearst. Yeah, it took him 26 years to build his house, and it was never finished. I'm like, what's your problem?
Yeah.
Anyways, he was an awesome client, and to this date, he is still one of my best friends. And he was very much a father figure in my life, and I was so lucky that our paths crossed.
And you told me when we were talking earlier that he has a very famous Italian restaurant, and for 65 years, or was it?
No, 96 years.
Wow.
96 years.
So
Yeah.
there's one other project that we talked about, and then.
Well, I wanted to talk for just a second about 401 North Wabash, which is otherwise known as Trump Tower. and I don't want to be political about this in any way, shape, or form, but I did 27 homes there. So, you know, it was like, what floor am I going to? I would forget which button to press because there was a lot of work going on all at once. But this woman is not the lady of the house. She was another client of mine from another project, but she came to borrow sugar while we were taking this photo.
So John told me to go get dressed.
Yeah. And, okay, next. But one of my, by far, most exciting projects was an estate that I designed and built from the ground up in Lagos, Nigeria. And that's a 15-hour flight from New York and connecting flights. It was 24 hours by the time I got there. But my client, I just learned this morning, is now president of Nigeria.
Wow.
It was a,
Yeah, pretty cool.
It was on 2 acres of land, which in Ikoyi, which is a borough of Lagos City, at the time, 12 years ago, cost $15 million. That was before we put anything on it. The construction of the house was over $50 million. We hired an Israeli construction firm. But we did all sorts of things. It was such a challenge because it was a totally different culture, and one that I had to spend a lot of time absorbing and learning about. He is Muslim, but his wife is Christian. And so we have like a mini chapel on the grounds and a mini mosque. And it's interesting because I never expected that, but so many people in this city of over 20 million people have those integrated relationships. The house had water purification system, water storage locations. We had a massive generator, and that was in a building all of its own, but then a 10,000-gallon underground diesel tank that powered the generator because why? Electricity went out like 4 times a day. There was also rooms, sleeping berths for 25 bodyguards. And the house had bulletproof glass. When I went to the city to present our drawings to the building commissioner, who was a woman, they loved the layout of the house, they loved the floor plans, they loved the way it flowed, they loved the way it designed security for the family to live in parts of the house and for other parts to be used for entertainment. And when I said there's gonna be bulletproof glass, she looked at me and she said, well, for what kind of bullets? I'm like, oh my God, okay, you have to ask the Israelis that, because I don't know.
That's so funny.
All right, so John, we're going to move along, but I just want to ask for the audience here, would you recommend if they get that rare opportunity to do something as far away as Africa to go ahead and take that project?
Absolutely is one answer, and be careful is the other answer. I mean, you have to have a lot of staff to help you when you're away. And so, you know, we would be, I was gone for 3 years, 12 or 15 times to Lagos, and we were spending a week, 10 days, whatever. And so, but my clients here at home still needed to be attended to. And fortunately, I had a really great staff. My clients not only loved me, can I say that? But they loved the people in my office. And we were like a family, and they knew that they could depend on everybody. And I mean, people could call me on my phone even though I was 7,000 miles away.
Yeah.
My phone bill monthly when I would be there was like $1,500 for my cell phone.
Wow.
But the experience of, you know, we're all about solving problems. And so the problems are totally different when you get over there and you have to, you know, you're wondering why people have these pigs with them. Well, that's because there's this little poisonous snake that's about 2 feet long that its venom is one of the most poisonous in the world. But but pigs are immune to that snake bite and to the poison, so everyone's got a pig. The things you learn when you're traveling abroad. The other thing is that, you know, when I was there, we were like afraid to eat anything. And I mean, we ate some of the food at the hotel, and the first time I was leaving, my client, she wanted to have this brunch on Sunday before we went home. And she had, oh my God, all these beautiful berries and beautiful salads and all this stuff. And we were like, and I looked at my brother who was with me, and we were just picking at the pork and picking at some other things, you know. And she said, well, John, have the berries, they're fresh, we just got them, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I get it. She says, you're afraid to eat my food. She says, do not worry, our water is purified. And so I did eat that, and then after that, I felt like I could eat anything. All the times I was there, I never got sick. When we left her home that day, she's like, what time did you go to the airport? I said, well, we're leaving at like 7 o'clock. She's like, okay, I'll get you a police escort. So you just never know what is around the next corner, and you should pursue every opportunity that's out there because you just don't know what you can turn it into. I mean, that's our jobs, right? We have this vision that perhaps our clients did not, and so it's our job to expose them to things to a world they never thought of, and deliver that.
Okay, so John, we got a couple other quick pictures that you and I picked out. This is,
That's my Egyptian temple. I lived in that apartment. I collected Egyptian artifacts that were 4,000 years old, and it was in a building that I had worked with the developer on modifying their floor
Who's in the
plan.
tub?
Oh my God, in the tub is in a house that I built in Bucktown, 10,000 square feet, 3 lots, and we were taking photos of the house, and this photo looked a little naked without someone in it, so we put someone in it. So I called my trainer, and I'm like, can you come over and get in the tub for us? And I had a new intern working with me, this girl, and she was so cute, but she was very proper. And the guy comes in and he just drops trout in front of everybody and gets in the tub, you know?
you gotta have fun, right?
Right, exactly.
And then this one last picture.
Oops, sorry, next.
Well, you know, we had a saying in my office that we did bathrooms to die for. So that's, you know, the apple took the bite out of the apple laying on the floor.
A good marketing slogan, right?
Right.
That was the project manager.
Yeah.
So, again, John is a personality that you just fall in love with. He's amazing. He's going to be with us through lunch selling his book. Honestly, I read this book. I bought a bunch of copies and gave them to anyone I knew who had somebody who was fighting diabetes, but you're absolutely right. I mean, it could go to anyone who's really fighting any health issue, because really for John, it's about living your life to the fullest, taking risks, doing stuff. He was never going to allow this disease to label him, and he did projects that made people's world so enchanted and beautiful, and they didn't even know he was sick. So without further ado, thank you.
Thank you. Oops, I love you too.
Okay.